Welcome to Authentic Expeditions, the podcast where we dive into the world of adventure travel and expedition cruising. I'm Sue Stockdale, and today I'm joined by Graham and Chrissie Mitchell from Buckinghamshire in the UK, first-time expedition cruisers, who recently returned from an unforgettable journey to East Greenland. They stepped aboard with curiosity, a sense of adventure, and not knowing exactly what to expect. So what was it really like? Let's find out what their experience was. Welcome to the podcast, Graham and Chrissie.
Hello.
Hello. It's lovely to have you both here. You were new to expedition cruising a couple of years ago, weren't you?
That's right, yeah.
So what caused you to book an expedition cruise?
I think it was the impending big birthday that prompted us to look at a big trip. That was the motivation.
Yeah, I've always particularly been interested in the outdoor sort of stuff. I've done various climbs and treks and various bits. But when it came up about going somewhere to either to the Arctic or the Antarctic, it was something we hadn't really thought that much about. But when we looked into it, it looked really, really interesting. And the more we looked into it, the more interested it became. And it turned out to be one of the best things ever that we've done. The actual cruising is just a mode of transport, for want of a better expression of putting it. The ship was lovely, the food was brilliant, it was nice and comfortable, but it was just a way of getting about. The important things was seeing how big the actual world is and how small we are as people and the damage that we're doing to the planet. But going to the Arctic and seeing these fantastic icebergs and the ice flows and walking on sea ice was just amazing. The expectation of seeing wildlife was secondary. To my opinion, if you saw anything, it was a bonus. If you didn't, the most important thing was seeing what our planet was like.
And what about you, Chrissie? Did you have the same sort of expectation before going on the journey, that what you were letting yourself in for?
I equally wasn't planning on seeing any particular wildlife. That wasn't the big prompt to go to the Arctic. For me, I was more interested in seeing the sea ice, the glaciers, the icebergs, and that kind of atmospheric things more than anything, and to feel it was a different place. That was my thoughts. So, like Graham, really, to see the muskox and the things that we saw was fantastic.
So my sense is that this journey for both of you was out of the ordinary. You wouldn't be doing an expedition cruise every year.
No.
It was going to be a special trip.
Yeah.
And it was going to be something that was very unlike anything that you had done before.
Absolutely. For us, this is a once-in-a-lifetime trip.
So based on what you imagined it was going to be like, what did you have to do to prepare yourself before going on the journey? What were your expectations and your preparation before you got there?
I didn't prepare anything.
We
to be perfectly honest, because I'm sort of quite adventurous anyway. I was probably the most excited I've ever been of places I realised I was going to see, which I never thought I would experience this sort of trip. And undoubtedly, it's up there. It's the best thing.
We did do our research in that we went to a presentation at the National Geographic Centre about polar travel, and the company that we went with, they put on this evening which was covering Antarctic and Arctic so that you could find out more about which route you wanted to go on. For us, I guess, to get to the Arctic, that we wouldn't necessarily have to do a huge long flight to get to Antarctica. So the Arctic was definitely, for us, the right choice, and definitely not been disappointed.
Now, it's not like perhaps a Mediterranean holiday where you can take more summer clothes and a swimsuit. So what about the preparation of thinking about the cold and the right clothing and equipment and even sea travel?
Well, fortunately, with the sea travel, I've always been fine with it, but it's always useful. You took seasick tablets with you, didn't you? Which I don't think you ever needed, did you?
No, I didn't.
The seas were relatively calm. I suppose packaging-wise, it was easy because you've just got to take one big bag on a ship and dump everything on there. It was just what you'd wear in cold weather anyway, plenty of layers. And the trip we went on, you were supplied with a nice warm jacket and waterproof over jacket.
And boots.
And boots as well when you went out on the Zodiacs. So I didn't personally find it was a problem with the cold. You was well prepared for it. And it wasn't that freezing cold anyway. I'd been in worse. And I don't know, it was just so different but so enjoyable. We've done cruises in the Med in previous times. With regard to the comfort, it was really quite comfortable on the ship. The food was amazing. But what I liked more than anything else was you dress casually, you put your gear on when you was going out on the Zodiacs and when you was going on the ice, walking on the sea ice. You didn't have to get fussily dressed up or anything like that. It was quite nice to be in that way. And be in a natural environment, you could dress just casually and naturally, but always be comfortable. The ship was extremely comfortable. It was small. The presentations of each evening, whereas people might be used to, go on a cruise, getting entertainment with singers and dancers and all this. You're getting geologists, you was getting people talking about just cloud situations. But the itinerary, just throw it away because it's just a rough guide because you don't know, which was brilliant because you wasn't sure what you was going to do the following day until you got up. Because it depended on wind direction, weather conditions, how the sea was going to behave, how much ice was about. You just didn't know. And that's what made it really brilliant for me, because you was an adventurer, really. And that's what it felt like, that you were actually on a good expedition.
How about you, Chrissie? What did you prepare then? What were your concerns or worries before going on?
I think certainly there's guidance from the company that you've booked with of a list of things that are useful to have. Like, you wouldn't necessarily think sunglasses, but it's a good idea to take sunglasses. Hats, layers, definitely. So yeah, there is guidance, but I think a lot of it is common sense as well.
So talk me through, what was it like when you first boarded the ship? I think it was in Iceland where you joined the ship for your cruise. When you boarded the ship and you got to meet your fellow passengers, what was going through your mind at the beginning of the voyage?
To my mind, I think it was the start of a big adventure, really, because we set off from Iceland, from Reykjavik, and it was just, this is going to be your home while you're travelling across the Arctic Circle, pretty much into the unknown as far as we looked at it, because we didn't know how far we were going to go, where we were going to go to a certain degree, and what we were going to see. And actually, not knowing that made it more exciting when you come across these huge icebergs, which are bigger than blocks of flats that you see anywhere in the UK. And then when you do see a bit of wildlife, it's nice to actually see animals where they should be, free and in the wild. I was particularly pleased to see muskox, and we were very lucky that they come down to the water's edge to drink when we were out in the Zodiacs. But it was more just seeing a natural side of the planet. It's all very well seeing it on TV, which is great, but to see it for real, when you wake up in the morning, you look out the window on the ship and you've got these huge ice floes and great big icebergs going by. It's just unbelievable. And the only way I can describe it is you've got to go and see it.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Chrissie, what were your thoughts as you boarded and got to meet your fellow passengers and found your way around the ship?
Yeah, I think it is really exciting. Walking up into the ship itself, it's kind of, well, this is new. And I think if you've been on a cruise ship in the Med, for instance, with a huge number of passengers, it is a very different experience to be going onto a ship that is far, far smaller, and it makes it more exciting and more intimate, really.
How many people were on the ship that you travelled on?
I think there were
70
passengers, and I think there were more crew than passengers. But that's luck of the draw, isn't it? Because I think the one before ours, there were significantly more passengers, but for our particular one, it was 77.
Yeah, and what was nice, we were all there for the same reason, because you wanted to go and see these things. It was very friendly, very laid back, and in the evening there were talks before you went into dinner from specialists, from historians, from people who'd actually lived in the Arctic itself, which made it really interesting, and it gave you a little bit of a mindset to maybe what you could expect, but you just couldn't describe just how vast everything is and how clean the air is and how quiet everything was. It's amazing. It really was amazing.
Now, one of the unique features that expedition ships have is going out on zodiacs, going out on those journeys every day. To tell me about your experience, what your expectations were of going on the zodiacs, and then what it was like in reality.
Okay. One of the first things that you perhaps don't think about is how are you going to get on and off a zodiac? So it was very good that the ship understand this, and they're not taking for granted that everybody just knows how to get on and off swiftly. So you are taught the procedure of getting on and off a zodiac, which you might think is straightforward, but in practice, it isn't always. So you've got about 8-10 people in a zodiac.
Money 8, yeah.
Going out generally twice a day just to see different things. I think on our cruise, we'd go out once on the zodiacs, perhaps in the morning, and do a tour for a couple of hours around icebergs and various points of interest, and then go back to the ship because obviously everyone needs the loo. And funnily enough, there's no public conveniences anywhere near. And then it seemed that they'd try and combine a zodiac tour in the morning to perhaps a land trip in the afternoon, where we'd be taken across to a particular point to do a choice of 3 different walks that are graded. So you don't really have to worry about, I won't be able to do that, it'll be too hardcore for me. There is always choices about a very easy stroll, a medium kind of walk that might involve some uphill bits, but generally flat, and then obviously a more strenuous option. So there's choices, which was really good.
Yeah, there's something for everybody. And going back to the zodiacs, it's quite basic training to get on and off, but it's important. But the safety aspect was spot on. It was first class. So you didn't really feel that you were at any risk because you were well looked after. And particularly going ashore, the guides there was one who was way ahead to make sure everything was safe to walk. You were well protected and well secure, basically, but without being mollycoddled. You was allowed to explore. You kept in the group, and points of interest were pointed out to you. So if you were interested in rock formations, the geologist there was able to explain everything. So the most important thing is, even though it was so exciting and quite adventurous, it was safe and secure. I never ever felt that I was in any sort of dangerous situation or anything like that. But everyone was aware of everything that was going on. So yeah, and it was exciting. Going around on the zodiacs was particularly interesting because suddenly seals would pop up around you and lots of seabirds because they were all ready to migrate. It was just unbelievable, some of the things that you see.
It sounds like it could be a haven for photographers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I imagine you got a lot of good photographs.
No, we really did.
Thinking about experiencing Greenland as you did on that voyage, what did you leave with as an abiding memory about Greenland?
I think you come away thinking it is completely unspoiled, but you only have to listen to the news to realise in reality what is happening in Greenland and what a vulnerable space it is. And I don't know, I feel we were privileged almost to see it as it is now, but you do know that there's that vulnerability and we all wonder what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah. What I particularly enjoyed was when we went ashore to an Inuit village and everyone seemed so happy, so pleased to see you, but what a harsh way of life. And obviously they were allowed to still hunt, that's the way they provide their food, but it seemed to be quite peaceful. It's a nice, slower way of life. Everything over here is 100 miles an hour. There it was everything a bit more laid back. Well, it was harsh conditions to live in, and I dare say it's quite a tough way of life anyway, but everyone seemed so happy there, and it made me look at things much differently when I came back. why live life 100 miles an hour? Let's slow it down, which I've tried to do. It makes you realise that we're only a tiny part of what this planet needs, and we're ruining it, really. And people who are living in Greenland and some of these vast communities, where it's quite harsh, weather's terrible and cold, but they manage quite happily.
Sounds like it did change your perspective about things there, Graham.
It did. Yeah, it did. For the better, I must say.
So thinking about the expedition cruise experience compared to other forms of holiday or travel you've had in the past, what are your reflections now, having had that experience? What would you say to the listener that might be thinking, should I do an expedition cruise? What's it like?
My message would be do it. Go and see these places while they're still there. Either it's the Arctic, the Antarctic. You'll see amazing sights. You'll meet some amazing people, and you'll have memories which will just last with you forever. It's all very well seeing it on film or TV, but to actually experience it firsthand I couldn't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah, I'd really go along wholeheartedly with that. It takes you out of your comfort zone, and it's not really a holiday as such. It's so much better than a holiday because it's such a big experience. So, yeah, I'd say go for it.
Is there anything that you wish you had known about expedition cruising before you had gone that you now do know?
I wish I'd have known about it years ago because I'd have done it much sooner.
I think when you're on the cruise, it's sometimes little things that you see or you sense that have an impact. I do recall seeing for the first time the almost texture of the water, of the sea, how it changes to almost look greasy. But that's the beginning of sea ice. And I had never seen that before, but in some way that felt amazing to see that. I'm seeing the formation of sea ice. And then as you travel further north, you see the icebergs and sea ice that you can stand on. It is just amazing. But also for me, I recall clearly seeing the clouds as different. I remember coming out onto our balcony one morning and seeing, I can't remember the technical name, but what I would describe as a fog bow, which was, I can still feel how incredible that was to see that. So just nature is wonderful, isn't it?
It was mind-blowing, really. It was. And the cold, it's a different cold. It's not the damp cold that you feel over here. It's a fresh cold that you just embrace it. As Chris was saying, the sea changes. And we were fortunate, we saw a pod of orca. We weren't following them, they were just going their own way and seeing humpback whales. It's just all where they should be seen, being left alone and migrating. It was just a whole different thing. When you're cold over here, you're shivering because it's damp or it's horrible. The cold out there, it's just fresh.
And also, you know that you're going back to a nice, warm and cosy ship.
Speaking of the ship, Chrissie, how did you get on with your fellow travellers?
I think it was great. Everybody seemed ready to interact with other people and be friendly. It was a real mix of people, different nationalities. I particularly liked the dining experience in that you could really sit where you want. There was no designated dining. If you wanted just a table for two, you could have that. If you wanted to sit with other people, you could just put yourself down at a table and then other people would join you. It was very relaxed. So I really liked that, and there were good conversations with fellow travellers.
Yeah, it was very informal, which is how it should be, really, because you've been out on an adventure throughout the day and then just sharing your experiences and your thoughts in the evening. But being so relaxed, it was just a nice way to end the day. There was people from all over the world who was on our particular trip, Australia, America, everywhere really. And yeah, everyone got on great. It was nice. And being it was only 70 people, you still had your own space when you needed it. It was nice, it wasn't overcrowded.
I think everyone perhaps has a perception that it's all covered in snow and ice, and it isn't. I think one of the spectacular things was a place called Gatto Point, which actually looked like the layers of a cake, all the different rock formations. And that was amazing to see that. So in a way, parts of Greenland look like a desert because of the tundra. So you mustn't think it's all covered in ice and snow. It isn't.
So as we bring the conversation to a close, if you were to ever get a chance to do another expedition cruise anywhere, where would be on your itinerary?
I think Antarctica, because I've seen the Arctic and enjoying that so much, I'd now like to see the other end.
The Arctic isn't just one place, it's so many places. And I think they're all different. I think we've thought about Svalbard. I think that would be a great adventure. But yeah, there's so many places that are just encapsulated by the term the Arctic, and there's a lot to see.
Well, thank you, both of you, for giving your time to share your first experiences of an expedition cruise with me. And I'm sure our listeners have got a much better sense of things from what you've said.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sue. Cheers.
Well, what an incredible conversation with Graham and Chrissie. Their experience proves that expedition cruising isn't just for seasoned explorers. It's for anyone with a thirst for adventure and a willingness to embrace the unknown. If their journey has inspired you to take the plunge, well, what's stopping you? The Arctic, the Antarctic, and more are waiting for you. Remember to check out our Cruise of the Month, where we highlight an extraordinary voyage that could be your next big adventure. You'll find out all about that on our show notes. And make sure to subscribe for more stories from the world of expedition cruising. Until next time, stay curious, be bold, and keep exploring.